Welcome to another episode of the Jaded Audiophile. Tonight's topic is going to be DIY speakers, preamps, amplifiers, and all that good stuff. So a lot of the DIY stuff is kind of poo-pooed by a certain sector of the audiophile glitterati, I guess you could call it. Whereas others, like myself, I take DIY not too seriously, but serious enough. But my attitude's always been, I've never been, even though I'm an electronics technician, technologist, whatever, junior level engineer, Wi-Fi engineer, whatever the hell, my title of the month or the year is. I was never fascinated with trying to build an amplifier from a kit or trying to build a preamplifier from a kit. You guys saw my whole Bose journey with the equalizers, analog, mini DSP, and all that stuff. That's my extent. Most of the time I used to DIY speakers. Because personally to me, they're a lot easier to do. Saying that, I don't use any real measurement tools. I just started recently, but in the past 35 years of doing DIY speakers and stuff, and I haven't done that much. Everything was by ear, calculated crossovers, I never believed in putting too many components, in the path between your amplifier terminals to your speaker drivers. And again, the other thing too is taste. The beauty with DIY speakers that a lot of these audiophiles don't get is the sound you make from those speakers is a sound that you like. If somebody else doesn't like it, fuck them. Honestly, fuck them. Because you built them, you put the pride into them. They sound the way they're supposed to sound in your room, right? Now the caveat there is a lot of times speakers like that tend to have to stay in the same room for them to sound good, right? Which is where your consumer manufacturers, they have to build speakers that's going to sell, that is going to have a sound characteristic that the general public's going to like, that the YouTube reviewers are going to like, so they can sell the stuff, right? And I get all that, but when it comes to DIY, if you like the bathtub curve, fucking build yourself a pair of speakers with the bathtub curve and away you go, right? If you like a nice flat neutral, what goes in has to come out type of sound, go for it, man. If you like a little bit of sizzly treble with just the right amount of mid-range and a lot of junk in the trunk with the bass, fuck, you can do that too, right? And that's why DIY speakers have always appealed to me. At the same token though, I've had a lot of really good speakers come through this room in the last year. And when I went on this open baffle journey, and I think you guys can see the backside of the clusterfuck over there, they're put aside for the time being. I got the 901 set up now. I had a pair of extra planars, so I'm going to do another video on that stuff pretty soon, probably following this one. Anyway, getting back on topic. So the whole beauty is you make your own sound the way you like it, right? Caveat is you can't really take that sound anywhere else unless you know what the room's going to be like. You may build a speaker that's a little bit, oh fuck, I don't want to fucking say this. What is it, the dark side of the neutral, warm side of the neutral? What the fuck do they call that? Warm side of neutral, yeah? Whatever the fuck. It's a little on the dullish side, right? The treble's a little rolled off, but it may be because the person's audio room has a lot of reflective surfaces. So they've had to boost the treble a little bit, soften the treble a little bit to compensate. And that's great, man. And the problem is you take those speakers into a room that's got a lot of carpeting, drop ceiling tiles, things like that. Now all of a sudden, those warm speakers that sounded fine in that reflective room, now they sound very rolled off. Not the fault of the DIY guy. It's just the way he designed them for his room, right? And essentially, I did the same thing with these open baffles. Now, this past Wednesday, our AZAV club, we hosted a DIY event, and we had a really good turnout. One gentleman brought a pair of MTM speakers that are basically a transmission line design, but that actually exits out a port instead of the usual mesh and the square opening. I'll insert a few pictures of those in the video. And another gentleman, and I've actually got the open baffle 18-inch Martin King design subs here that we used. I've got my other friend's small bookshelves, which image like a motherfucker, soundstage like a motherfucker, beautiful, but the top end is rolled off. And when I asked him about it, it was because they're for his room, right? And he wanted a totally honest, valid opinion, and that's what he got, not just from me, but from other folks. They loved how the things image, soundstage, great, and again, it's because the room that we use, for our meetings has full carpeting, drop ceiling tiles. When you do the clap test, it's not that bad. And it's a big room, right? It's a big, huge rectangular room. And, but at the end of the day, they did sound fine, Gentleman speakers that he brought down from Prescott, they sounded amazing. It was an MTM design. The crossover, I believe, was designed by Jeff Bagby. They sounded amazing, right? And I was able to walk around in front of the speakers to hear what they were sounding like, because most of the time I was behind everything. Friend of mine that was a huge help to me, he brought down his Pass F6 DIY audio kit, all put together. The Pass preamp with the little Korg tube chip, that was brought down. I had my PS audio DAC. I had my Sony Blu-ray player with the I2S boards built into it. So that setup ran like a charm, right? We also had a gentleman who built his own planar magnetics, and they're basically full range from 60 hertz to beyond 20K. That's why the subwoofers were brought, not so much for the bookshelves or the speakers from Prescott, but we needed them specifically for those planars. And we just, with the amount of time, we had an hour and a half of setup time and trying to dial stuff in and getting everything ready for showtime at 7 o'clock. And at least I had enough brains to say, okay, let's show off the box speakers first. Especially since, the gentleman drove down from Prescott and he was going to drive home that same night. So, but I knew we were going to have problems with the planar magnetics, because I'd heard those at the gentleman's home with a REL subwoofer, and they were amazing, absolutely amazing. When we brought them to the hall, we had the two open baffle subs flanked on either side. I put in the curve as per the way the gentleman that built the speakers, and by the way, that's a patented design of his. The same gentleman also rebuilt Paul McGowan's IRS-5s, MMs, and Emmett planar drivers, and this gentleman's also rebuilt a few IRS-5s around the country as well. So, the credibility and the knowledge was amazing. So we played these things, and we had a hell of a time dialing them in. At one point, when I first fired up the subs, I had the bass boost on, And I kind of thought, okay, for that room, it's a big room, I got to fill it up. I put a little bit of bass boost, not too much. I did the 60 hertz slope the way the gentleman wanted it, right? I had the proper roll-off rate. I think it was a 24 dB Butterworth that he wanted, so I dialed that in through the mini DSP. And then it was booming. I mean, the bass was just way too much, right? It was overpowering the ribbons, and it just, so then I brought it down 10 dB. That helped. Then I got rid of some of the boost, and just as 10 o'clock was, or sorry, 9, just past 9 o'clock, we had to start shutting things down just as we were dialing these things in. So again, the gentleman that built those ribbons, or planar magnetics, yeah, sorry, he offered, well, why don't we do a round robin sessions where we'll have maybe 8 people at a time come over to his place from the club and listen to it in his environment, you know. And the gentleman and his son put a lot of work into building crates and, you know, making sure nothing got damaged, and they really had their act together. And I felt really bad that we just did not have enough time to dial the things in, because we were getting so close. And but people at the end of the day, they saw the potential, they heard the potential, and we actually played some tracks without the subs dialed in. And even though there was a lot of bass content, the ribbons were able to do something with it. But yeah, but up below 60 hertz, it would drop, like the bass would drop off like a rock, and that's how it was designed. So, you know, it was a good event. You know, at the end of the day, I mean, probably next time we're going to turn it into a 3-hour thing, depending on who's bringing what. I may show off these things because they're just about ready for prime time. You know, I still got a few little tweaks to do here and there. I still got some cabinet resonances, and that was the other thing. My friend's 18-inch open baffles was a good reference against what the monstrosities that I'd built with the two 12-inchers. And I got to admit, these things are really, really big for the room. So that's the end of the rant. People doing DIY out there, man, you guys are awesome, amazing. People that are doing DIY amps and preamps and things like that, same thing. I mean, I envy those people. It's just that even though I'm an electronics guy, it just never really floated my boat to build an amp, you know. I've always bought commercially available products, you know, when it came to amps, preamps, receivers, obviously. And I never really had that itch to build something like that, you know. Guys, other than that, next video I'll show you all the DIY stuff that was, some of the stuff that was at the event. And that's basically it, you know. Have a good one, and Happy's in the video this time. She's sleeping, but it's all good. All right, guys, we'll talk to you soon, and bye for now. Thanks for watching.